to another lesson where we're doing functions, but for Introduction to Programming 1. It can obviously help you with Programming 2 as it is the basics. But yeah, please also don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get notified every time, I post videos. And also please comment and share in groups that you think people might need or get help. So a function is basically a block of code that performs a specific task or specific tasks, right? You think of a function as a machine. You give it something to do, it does the job, and then finishes it, right? So instead of writing the same code many times, you can write it once inside a function and call it whenever you need it. And I made an example here. So if you could imagine that you're baking cakes, and every time you bake, you basically let's say you have a cake business where every time you're baking, you have to mix ingredients, pour the mixture, bake it again, and then decorate it. So it's quite a lot having to repeat those things. So instead of writing or doing all these instructions every single time, imagine having like a button called bake cake, right? Imagine having this, and whenever you press the button, all these steps basically, I think I erased something, but all these steps happen automatically. And that's basically what a function does. Why do we use functions? We use functions because they're easier to read, they're easier to understand, easier to fix, they are shorter and reusable. So just think, instead of writing the same thing a lot of times, you want to write it once, where if you want it or if you need it, you just call it. So it makes it easier, or it makes the program easy to look at and very clear. You can reuse it anytime, it's short. If you need to fix something, you just go to the function and then you fix it, right? Writing your first function, I have an example of what a function looks like. So you would have your include IOStream, your using namespace, and then after that, basically before the int main, you would want to have a function, right? Because the computer, so I'm going to explain this at a later stage. So with functions, the first kind of function you have is like a void function. I'm going to explain why we say it's a void, but this is the easiest, right? So it's a void function, and this function is called greet, and then I'm assigning it what to do or how to greet you. You close off your curly braces and then come onto the int main. In the int main, I'm just going to write the function. This means when the computer sees the int main, it's going to see, oh, there's a function that they're calling, so I need to go to the function block. And then it checks what the function is. So the function name is greet, and it says welcome back, and then it's going to output the welcome back. So obviously I don't have my compiler with me, so you can just try it at home or whenever you get time. How this basically works is the computer reads the void greet, so this name of the function, which basically means I'm creating a function called greet, right? So I'm creating a function, the void, that is called greet, and everything inside these curly brackets belongs to the function. So anything that I print here belongs to that function. And then when you come into the int main, the computer obviously will see the greet, and this basically means go and execute the function called greet, which returns you the welcome back, like a flow chart that I want us to look at. So a program would start, and then the computer looks at the int main, and then it sees the function, right? And then it goes to what the function is, and then it prints out whatever the cout is, or whatever that's inside the curly brackets of the function, and then it returns to the main, and then it prints that out for you in the like the cout, and then your program basically ends. Let's talk about how to use functions. Let's say you have void, the name of the type of function we're using is a void function, and then I have hello, and that's right. And then inside I wanted to print hello, so I'm going to have cout and hello. And then in the int main, I'm just going to call the function, oopsie. And then you always obviously have the return O. Right, so this is basically your first kind of or how to basically use functions. So if I'm having a function called hello, or naming it hello, and I'm just gonna say what I wanted to print out inside the computer. What the computer ignores is this: it basically sees the int main, and then inside the int main, obviously it has to compile whatever that's inside. It's going to see the hello, and then it sees, oh, that's a function, and then it goes back up to a function called hello. Underneath that function called hello, it checks what the function is, and then the the output would be the hello. So if I were to remove this in the int main, this, right? If I were to remove the function or me calling the function still would exist because remember it's still there in the void, but nothing happens. So it's removed. The computer sees the int main, it sees nothing, so it's not going to call anything. So no one asked it to do its job, so it's not going to do its job. If you think of maybe calling your friend, your friend's phone basically exists, but they answer or they wouldn't answer unless you call them. So no one is going to answer the call unless you call them. The phone is still there, but the call won't be answered. Let's talk about the void functions, because I think by now you would want to know why we're naming them void. So you'll often see void, which basically means this function does not return a value. So no value is going to be returned. You're just going to have whatever you called, right? It just does the task that you assigned it to do. Okay, I have an example here. So if I'm saying I'm naming this function welcome and as a void function, and then I'm saying it must print this out for me, it's going to print that out for me. So it's not going to do anything else, but only what I asked it to do, right? And that basically means a function displays a message. In this case, it's a message, but not it won't send anything back to me, like it won't send an answer to me. Okay, if I wanted it to return an answer, maybe I'm saying welcome, and then the person is like, yay. If I wanted it to return yay, I was going to use a string function instead of a void function. Okay, let's just really just talk about functions that return values back to the user. Not all functions basically return values. Some calculate something and return an answer. So I have an example here. So if I have int add, so instead of void now, I'm using int, meaning I want it to return an integer. So and I want it to add basically. So I'm going to tell it return 5 plus 3. And when it's called in the int main, it's going to return 8 because 5 plus 3 is 8, remember? So let's have an example of what this would look like. You have a function int add, right? And then I'm telling it to return 5 plus 3, which we're expecting an 8, obviously. And then I'm closing it. And then in the int main where I'm going to call this, I have now cout, and then I'm calling it. So I'm calling the name of the function, right? And then it's going to return an addition. Okay, so basically the output here is going to be 8. So it's going to go on the cout and see the add, right? And then it checks there's an integer or a function integer where we're supposed to add. And then it's going to check what it's supposed to return. And in this case, it's going to return an 8. Talk about the local variables. Remember what a variable is? I'm not saying local functions. I really just said local variables. People just I first mistaked this with local functions, so I was very confused when obviously looking at problems regarding this. So a local variable is created inside a function. So you have a variable inside a function that you're going to call. So obviously only that function can use it. I have an example here. The void function is test, and inside we have a variable declared as age, and it's an integer 20. So that basically is a local variable. This is inside a function. So if I call the function, the compiler is going to, the computer is going to look at the inside, which is the int age, and then print whatever or however I want it to print. So the variable basically is age, which exists only inside the function. If, for example, if you think of your bedroom, you can only use the things that are in your bedroom, and people outside cannot come in and use your things. Like your bed, for example, you're the only one who can use your bed, right? Talk about the global function. A root function. Can you see? So global variables, actually, not functions. So a global variable is created inside all functions. So for now, obviously, I'm using examples where I only have one function. But if you think in general, yeah. Okay, for example, if you have int age, let's say this is equal to 20, and then I'm naming it void test, right? And I'm saying it should print the age. And then in the int main, I'm going to call it, is how the thingy looks. If you think about it, now the int age, or the variable that I'm declaring, is not inside a function, it's outside a function. And inside this function, I'm going to call it. So if I didn't want it to be in this function, I wouldn't call it here, or I wouldn't name it there, right? Basically what a global variable is, and every function can use the int age. So if I had another function underneath these curly, okay, I don't have space anymore, but if maybe I had another function for maybe void egg, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but if I had another function and I didn't want it to have the C out age, maybe I wanted it to have welcome or you are a boy, I was really just gonna not have, oh, this is for the, okay, for the local actually, right? For the local. So this is for int age and it's global. So if I had another function, this global thing was going to be, so age was going to be everywhere, right? So whether I like it or not, age would be everywhere, unless maybe I wanted to add in another statement here. So it would have age and maybe the welcome that I was talking about. Okay. So these are the two differences between local variable and global variable. With a local variable, a variable is created inside. Only one function can use it, and it exists only when the function runs. So if I don't call the function, it's not going to exist really. And then with the global variable, it's created outside, and every function can use it, and it exists for the whole program. So whether I don't call a function inside my int main, the ones that I called would have that global variable. Okay, let's talk about the reference parameters. Normally, when you send a variable into a function, the function gets a copy, and I'm going to explain what I mean by this. So sometimes we want the function to change the original variable, so we use reference parameters for that. For example, if I had maybe void, okay, let me zoom in. So if I had void, let's say increase, and whatever you name your function has to make sense to how you're going to use it. So increase would mean I want something to increase, right? So I can't go decrease and then I'm gonna like just make it make sense for the person who's going to be marking. Okay, so the and here, this and basically means the original variable and not the copy. I am going to kind of explain to the best of my ability what I think an original variable is and what a copy is. Hopefully you're also going to understand what I mean. So for example, using this example that I did, I'm just going to write it obviously in a clearer form of coding. So let's say you have hashtag include. Okay, so I'm just going to continue this on the bottom, but so far we just have what we had. And then, oh, I was supposed to actually do it down here. Okay, so inside the int main, I'm going to have int maybe number, for example, and I'm giving it number 5. And then with the increase, remember the increase that we had? So I'm just going to change it now. So I'm just going to say number. And then with the C out, I'm going to call this number that's inside the increase. And then it has to return something, right? So because I had this plus plus, right? So because I had that plus plus and the number was 5, it's going to look at the increase, and then the number that's going to return back to me would increase by 5, sorry, by 1. So it would be 6. If you think about it, remember, you have a function called increase and then it's end x. Remember, the end basically means the original variable. So x is the original variable. And then inside here, I'm just going to declare quickly a number called 5. And then now I'm saying increase this number called 5. And then because this is a function, it's going to go up. Okay, I was supposed to enclose it with. It's going to go up to the increase. All right, it checks. There's a function, a void function called increase, and then it says we have to increase by 1. So the C out now is the number. So now the number is 6. Yeah, I hope you understand that. So the original variable has basically changed. Ne? If you think, okay, let me just make an example quickly. So imagine borrowing your friend's notebook. If you get the photocopy and then you write on it, the writing basically does not affect the original book because whatever that's in the original book wouldn't have changed because you wrote on a photocopy. But if she gives you the book back and then you write whatever you wanted to write in the photocopy, but now you write it in the book, the original thing it does now change. So that's basically how a normal operator, the normal operator is like a photocopy where you're not really changing anything. And then the reference parameter is the actual notebook. So you now changing the numbers and stuff like that, you basically like changing or affecting the original thing that was supposed to come out. Okay, let's talk about the variable diagrams, which basically help us understand what values are stored in a memory while the program is running. So I'm just gonna have 2 examples, I think, and then the video will be done. So if you have int age being equal to 20, the variable here that you're declaring would be the age, and then so I was supposed to enclose that. The value that's going to be stored in the memory while the program is running is going to be 20. Okay, another example is if you have int x equal to 5, and then now I'm saying x is equal to x plus 3. So this would have obviously 2 parts. Firstly, or in the beginning, the variable is x and the value that's being stored is 5. And then after, the computer obviously is going to read this. So afterwards, the variable is still x, but now the value that's going to be stored is 8. So you'd have 5 plus 8, and that would be the new variable. So that's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next time we're going to be doing things like our arrays and how they basically play a role when it comes to C++ learning.